The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, TechByte is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
So welcome to a special episode, a TechByte Spotlight episode, and I'm really pleased to have as a conversation partner in this, Kasey Gieschen, who is a global account representative for Infor in the hospitality side. So welcome to TechByte.
Rob, thanks so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we'll see if it's a pleasure by the time we're done, but it will be a pleasure to have the conversation because we've had several conversations before.
Yeah.
And this is the first one I think we've ever had, actually live streaming on air. So why don't we just sort of start out with a little bit of your background and also Infor as well, and just sort of set the stage for the conversation we're going to have.
So yeah, Rob, thanks so much. Infor is a global enterprise software company that specializes in very specific industries so that we can deliver industry-specific solutions. I have been a part of our hospitality division for 5 years now, where we focus on delivering back office solutions that are designed to help our hospitality partners to deliver a memorable and unforgettable guest experience. So what that means for Infor is we've got solutions like our hotel management system, our point of sale, sales and event management, revenue management, and I focus specifically on our workforce management software designed to help hotels, casinos, resorts, food service management companies, restaurants, venue management firms to deliver unforgettable experiences to their guests. And so workforce management includes time and attendance, scheduling, and everything in between that helps your company to make payroll every week or every other week.
Which is obviously a very important thing across, but I do want to just add a couple things into your introduction there. So, because I got some key words out of this thing. So global, number one, and I'm not sure that everybody knows, Infor in the global market, but you are global. I know Infor, of course, working across many markets, including retail, food service, of course, and hospitality, which a lot of people equate to the lodging industry, but really very much across the board globally. And also, I bet you that in the introduction you just gave, that people probably don't understand the scope and the depth of the products that you have, because point of sale is certainly in there. And we've got all kinds of different products in the hospitality industry. So before we actually start about workforce management, which is behind all of it, just sort of a little bit about the other products or how they all fit together. What are you actually bringing forward to hospitality?
Great question. And I love Infor's approach to hospitality because we do have a whole hospitality suite. Like I said, hotel management software, which does all of your property management. We have an RMS solution, an analytics platform that can help to predict your different room rates. And then we have the point of sale and the sales and event management. So they're designed to be tightly integrated to one another, but also loosely coupled. And what that means is that you can have one of those products ad hoc, or you can have the full suite and they'll nest together quite simply for you to have that tight integration that your team doesn't have to manage, but we'll manage that for you.
Right. So you have all of the industry applications, but at its backbone, you also have the finance applications. You have other applications as well that really surround it. But as you've pointed out, it's not a all or nothing situation that you can go ahead and pick and choose, what you need, or you may grow into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm on the team that does all of those business enablement tools. So that is your FSM product and all of your ERPs. That's your human capital management, making sure that all of your employees are covered and you're sending all of the right amounts to payroll. And then nestled within that is our workforce management software, which covers, like I said, our rules engine so that you're making sure that your employees are getting paid the right rate for the shift that they're working, and then that they're scheduled in the right role for the position that's available that day.
Well, the reason why I wanted to head down the path of just making sure we understand, how deep, Infor really runs here is because I bet you that people listening to this, or even if I ask you or you ask me first, I'm going to come up with different definitions of what workforce management is. But I do like the word that you're responsible for enablement because there is no hospitality industry unless our workforce is enabled, to provide hospitality, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. And that leads me to think of the book that I love that I read when I first got into hospitality. So it might be a little bit dated at this point, but Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, right? He always reinforced the philosophy that there's a difference between service and hospitality. Service is something that is a service that you deliver. Hospitality is a feeling that you deliver. And so if you don't deliver that feeling to your employees, then your employees aren't necessarily delivering that feeling to your guests. And so we enter this cycle of what hospitality means to your customers, and then how Infor can help you to
And
deliver
this
or
comes, of
enable
course,
you.
because you do have a deep background in the restaurant side of things.
Yeah.
I'm sort of curious, though. So, did you just say that setting the table that helped to move you in, or you had already decided you were doing this and then you decided to read it? Which way was it?
Well, I got yanked into hospitality, not kicking and screaming, but I definitely had the opportunity because of somebody that wanted to bring me into it. They thought that I had that hospitality vibe, if you will, and so it was recommended to me actually by one of our support managers to read Setting the Table. And I had worked in restaurants, I had worked in bars, I had definitely grown up in the hospitality industry through high school, college, all of those things. But he said, have you ever read it? If you haven't, you have to. And he gave me his copy. What I loved about him at the time is that anytime he hired a new support technician, he made them all read the same book, because if you're servicing hospitality, you have to understand
Absolutely.
hospitality.
But it really sets the table, and it really, puts you in a position. I went to hospitality school, but I didn't actually start that way. And the way I
Yeah.
ended up was we had to read. I took this just general class, and we had to read the book Hotel, which of
Okay.
course became the TV program, and it was a movie. But I read that, and I was like, okay, I want to be in the hospitality industry after reading about all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes in a hotel.
Definitely. Definitely.
So,
I have this is a sidebar, but my nephew is working at a hotel at a national park this summer, and you can never get him on the phone. And so when you finally get him on the phone, he says, I've been working 12-hour days, sometimes in housekeeping, sometimes in the restaurant. They have me running service items to different rooms as I need to, restocking mini bars. It's that all-in mentality where you could work any shift
right.
at any point in time, wherever you're needed, you go where you're needed. And I love the lesson that he's learning because of that, right? The 12-hour
But
days are tough.
he's learning that lesson. Are you able to apply that lesson to workforce management? Because you just used the example. He's moving different shifts. He's working long hours in a day. He's actually working in a remote location. So I'm going to guess that labor availability and staff may be a limited resource. So are you actually learning something from him that you're applying to what you're doing every day?
I absolutely am. I'm using it in almost every phone call that I'm having, because it's such a testament to what working today in a hotel looks like. And it's not all that different from what it was 30 years ago, but maybe your labor is a little bit different, right? The labor that you're going to recruit and retain today looks a little different than it did 30 years ago, but that all hands on deck, I go where I'm needed mentality, that hasn't changed, and that never changes. And so when I think about Remy's experience right now in the hotel, I just keep applying Infor's workforce management software to it, because at the bedrock or the foundation of our platform is this incredibly sophisticated rules engine. And what that means to you and me and the casual listener here today is that you can have different jobs, pay different rates for the shift that you're working at the time. And you can even have that apply to the skill level of the employee for the role that they're in. So they might be highly skilled at being a sous chef in the kitchen, but they want to pick up another shift, or they're forced to pick up another shift in housekeeping that day, but they're not as skilled at housekeeping. So then their pay rate drops to maybe a level 3 or level 4 housekeeper. But so making sure that you're applying the right rate for the job that you're working, or jobs that you're working on any given day, is extremely
The right
important,
rate, but
especially.
I think you're also pointing out the right skill set that's there. I used to tell people that if you're working, I was a restaurant manager. So when you work in restaurants, if you have a slow shift, you need a more skilled person, because they can work, the fry station, the grill, they can work salads, they can work all of them. But when
Certainly.
you're really busy, you may have one person that's actually working that specific job. And so, they don't have to be as skilled in it or a jack of all trades, to be, and you want to schedule that way. But as you're also pointing out, there may be different pay rates there. So I bet you thought I was going to let you off the hook. So I'm not. So how are we defining workforce management?
Workforce management as defined by Infor combines two of your key elements of managing your labor. So this is that really sophisticated time and attendance platform, which is the rules engine. You're managing all of your clock in, clock out data, and you're managing and calculating all of the pay for your employees. And the second side of that is the scheduling. How do you have your airtight schedule so that your shifts are filled based on the capacity you have or the capacity that you're expecting? And we'll get to that in a little bit. But how are you making sure that your schedule is aligning with your pay so that payroll is always on time, never missed, and it's always accurate? You have to, so important for our operators these days is keeping payroll on budget.
Right. So I'm, first of all, thrilled that you are actually using the words rules-based and you haven't used a different term, which will sooner or later come up here, but rules-based, because in reality, every operator is different, and every operator, if you ask them, how do you make that decision? It's got to be part of their culture, how they want to operate in the service they give. So how does Infor actually help you up front to determine what those rules should be? Because there's not necessarily an industry standard set, and then you have to layer on top of it whatever rules you're forced to use based on where you're at.
Yeah, and I mean that's such a great question. It's industry rules, but then it's also your corporate rules, it's state, local, federal, municipal government rules, and then it's how you apply all of those rules around the globe, right? It's different in Vegas than it is in Frankfurt, than it is in Tokyo, right? So Infor does a great job of partnering with each of our client partners to understand what their goals are as an organization and build out any rules that they have that are organization specific. But what we also have is a marketplace where you can pull down rules that are universally applicable. I love an example. We have a large movie theater client that has movie theaters all over the US and Canada. And if you think about a movie theater population, you know that their employee population or largest employee population, I'll say, is between 16 and 22. And so what we do for them is we are able to help them to adhere to state, local, even federal laws as it pertains to scheduling your labor. But the added complexity for this theater company is that there's a lot of minor laws that have to apply as well.
Right. So wait, to be clear about this,
yeah,
the customer can depend on you to know what the governmental laws are going to be, whether they're country, region, city, or local, okay, which is 4 different levels, right? So they can depend on you to know that because of your base. But I think what you're saying is that if I'm a movie theater company or I'm a hotel or I'm an independent hotel or an independent restaurant, that I also can pull down learning of other people to sort of, I don't have to do it all from scratch.
Which you're absolutely right. Your understanding is totally correct. We build rules and then apply them to our marketplace where any other customer can pull them down if it's something that's made available to the broader audience, the broader WFM customer base. And so it makes it really easy to adopt our technology and then apply it to your environment for anything that's standardized in that way. There's a ton of unique rules that you can build in your system too. And so when you think about that, I ask you to think about our airline customers or even our media and entertainment customers that have studio lots where there's a lot of union agreements or collective bargaining agreements. And so you have to apply the unique terms and conditions for the positions that exist within those agreements to the shifts that you're scheduling for.
Well, that's actually a different point, I think, that you're making. On one hand, I understand, obviously people understand the idea of global, regional, local, national. Okay, they get that. But now you're talking about cross industry. And so I look at this, and I hate to use the word rules here. So maybe in this particular case, we might say the learnings, that are available. But we also see our industry is not just one industry. We're an ecosystem and we work across it, and we'll see a convenience store that has a restaurant in it. We see restaurants going into casinos. We see casinos ending up in C-stores, so we're one ecosystem. And so, and by the way, as soon as I know a large market for you guys is the on-site market, the non-traditional, the stadiums, the arenas, colleges, universities, airports, those are multi types of things. So somehow having that in the database when you don't know where your operation's going to be today or where it's going to go, you need to get those learnings as well.
You absolutely have to get those learnings, and then you have to be flexible, right? I think a huge trend that we're seeing in each of those verticals that you just named, or each of those industries that you just named, that tend to operate as self-functioning or self-contained cities, a higher education space, a casino. There's a ton of different outlets where you can be utilized as labor, right? You can be in retail, you can be in food and beverage, you can be in banquets and events, you can be in the general cafeteria. You can be placed in any of those roles, but you can also pick up shifts in any of those roles with our software too. And so I'll transition a little bit to the scheduling side, where one of the major trends that we're seeing is a shift towards gig style labor. And what I mean by gig style labor is a lot of the younger generations are used to just sort of saying, I got 4 hours of downtime. What am I going to do? Oh, I'll log into Uber Eats and I'll make a couple of deliveries. You have to meet that generation where they're willing to work. And so one of the ways that we're helping folks to do that is to help to apply the learnings that we know from the customer base that we have in our own market research to the way that you're scheduling your labor and the way that you're appealing to the current population that's filling those shifts. Right. So there's an app that says, here are the shifts that are available, or you could even blast those available shifts out to eligible and qualified employees for those shifts. So one day they're working in the cafeteria and the next day they're a cashier at Starbucks.
So you're teasing us with a really big subject right now. So why don't we just take a quick break, and I want to come right back on the gig side of this, and okay. Because I think you actually have teed up something that is a big discussion point, for us. So I'm having a conversation. We're going to take a break with Kasey Gieschen, who is a global account executive with Infor and focused, and we're having a conversation about workforce management. So we'll be right back.
With the rapid expansion of technology in the food and beverage industries, finding the right supplier can become overwhelming and complicated. To simplify this process, the IFBTA created Exchange. Exchange is a powerful search tool where users can easily narrow down their technology search and refine results by application type, geography served, department, and more. Browse resources and learn more about the industry's technology suppliers at exchange.ifbta.org. Now, back to the show.
So welcome back. And I'm with Kasey Gieschen, who's a global account executive with Infor. And she works in the hospitality industry, but has a long background in many different places and is a very hospitable person, as we're learning here. And we were on a subject, we were talking about the gig worker, and we see a lot more people taking those gig shifts and things. Those gig shifts, by the way, could be within your own operation. If you're really big, because we were talking about, casinos and cruise, well, maybe not cruise ships, but casinos and stadiums and arenas and universities and things. But you're bringing up a different point. It's not all about the employer anymore, is it? It's really about the employee. And so what are those trends beside, where you see the gig employee? How are we, by using great workforce management, actually making ourselves a employer of choice, for not just the gig employee, but for the newer market of employees?
What a great question. And so you're right. The gig style labor is throwing everybody for a loop. We've got to change the way that we've traditionally done things. We're seeing entire RFPs that are focused on meeting the employee where they are and giving them flexibility, because you've got employees out there that might want to work at one of your hotels in Colorado during the winter so they can snowboard all winter long, and then they want to transfer to one of your hotels in Miami so that they can lay on the beach when they're not working.
And they may choose you as an employer because you have both.
They choose you as an employer,
and you make it seamless to do it, right?
You have to give them flexibility. You have to give them visibility, and you have to give them flexibility. Data is so available, and you need to make sure that you're delivering that data in a way that's consumable and that's digestible and that's actionable. And so they have to be able to look at their schedules very clearly. They have to be able to change their shifts on the fly, and they have to be able to log in and see, what am I getting paid this pay period? Can I afford to go snowboarding this weekend? Because those Epic passes are extremely expensive.
So what we're saying here is that there really is a employee focus side of this. The user experience is designed not only for the employer and the stakeholders, but it's also the user experience is actually developed for the employee themselves.
Yeah, and I think that leads into one of the biggest trends that we're seeing, or challenges that we're seeing for our operators these days, which is the recruitment and the retention of quality labor, quality staff. If you meet the employee where they are and you're giving them the type of experience that they're looking for as far as their employment is concerned, I think then you're more likely to retain that employee. If you give them the flexibility, if you give them the ability to communicate, and you give them clear visibility into what they're doing, then they're going to appreciate you as your employer more, and they'll stick around.
So if somebody is focused on those areas, what should they expect as an improvement in retention or turnover rates, or recruiting the right? Let's go ahead and split this out, because one is the retention rate, okay, that's there, which is great, and turnover. But the other one is, how are you going to use this to actually hire the right person in the first place?
Yeah, and Infor has a couple of different ways that we can do that. Infor has a great tool called talent management. I actually took this talent quiz when I was hired by Infor as well. This is the ability to fill out an employee profile, and we help you with our data scientists help you to complete some of these employee profiles. But you can complete employee profiles where they have to take a quiz before they're hired, and the quiz aligns them to the best fit for their skill set based on the way that they've responded to this quiz. So that's one way that Infor can help. And then the other way is just, again, making sure that it's really easy for them to be employed by you. They have that access to all of the information. I mean, there are chains out there still today, quick service chains, fast food chains, where they're still not publishing their schedules online. There is a paper schedule in the manager's office. And I know this because one of my colleagues has a daughter who's working for one of these brands right now. She has to text her mom a picture of the schedule every week when it's put up in the manager's office. That feels archaic to me. And then you have to know the person's phone number to be able to get one of your colleagues' phone numbers to be able to get them to swap a shift with you or fill a shift for you. I think that that's not doing you any favors in terms of retaining your employee workforce.
Well, I think that people, a younger workforce certainly, is more engaged and is using different technology tools to communicate. And we have to use those same type of tools to communicate in a fashion they want. But at the same time, I had somebody once tell me that, the bulk of the reason that there's such high turnover when somebody starts their job is they weren't scheduled properly in the first few months, and the person gets frustrated and they quit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, it's just sort of something. Are there some learnings, some things, specific examples you might give of where you have seen this put to work and somebody has recruited better, retained better, just an example of how we might not be thinking about it being used? Because I think, as you've pointed out, people know the traditional stuff. You make a schedule, you go look at your 6-week rolling, number of customer count. Maybe you are smart enough to apply the weather and special events in there. But, with what's available today, what are the real life examples of success?
So I just heard a great story the other day, and it was actually, so we have a big business for our labor management software in healthcare as well. But I heard a great example about how our scheduling has helped some of their managers to schedule some of those right employees for the right shifts. So I'll go down the path with you about how retaining those early employees becomes difficult if you're not scheduling them properly. So we are launching tools that are basically using artificial intelligence to help your managers to schedule appropriately for the staff that
It
they
took you
have.
20 minutes to get to that word, those two words.
And that was intentional.
I was still good with rules-based, by the way, because I think that people don't realize that it actually is nothing new, that it was rules-based, but now we're just automating those rules and taking a look at them differently. So anyway, but that's a rabbit hole. So go ahead.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, so we're we're addressing the exact problem that you brought up, which is using AI to help to fill shifts with the right people at the right time. And so you've got your very seasoned, and let's say we're helping the new employee, but we're also helping the new manager. And that comes in where you're a very experienced manager, or let's call it your charge nurse. They know exactly how to schedule. They don't have to close the door for 3 hours, shut off the rest of the world, and dig in deep while they're trying to make their schedule. They know exactly what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. It's more about helping your newer managers schedule the right employees at the right time. And what we've done is we've infused AI to basically take this employee's credentials and apply them to the right shifts to make sure that they're on shift at the same time as somebody else that's extremely seasoned and that has better credentials and more credentials than they do, so that they can learn while they're at work that day. And so it's called Open Shift Manager. And we're taking the logic that's built behind the scenes to make sure that that the younger employees are scheduled for shifts that they are eligible and qualified to work, but also where they're going to find success. Your team is going to find success, and they're going to be able to deliver the best guest experience because the right team is staffed during that shift throughout the day.
And by the way, if you're on the management side, yes, you want your employees to be happy, but I always use this example when people are putting together a menu that sometimes you think something has a higher profit margin, but it takes longer to cook. You have more waste. It has this or that, and it really isn't, right? And so when you're looking at that mix of employees as to their skill sets, their pay rates, that's something you're not going to throw in front of somebody. And quite frankly, a manager may not be aware of that insight into it. Sure. But if you have a choice between two and there's a skill set or a pay rate difference, as long as you also have that other factor, which is that they need to be utilized or paid a certain number of hours average so they're happy, right? Why not make the right decision? But that does take actionable insights, AI, that might be, provided for them by looking at the data.
Yep. Yep. And we also, there's a couple other things that help that employee to stay retained as well. So we have an employee self-service portal where your employee can set their preferred working dates. They can set the preferred dates where they don't work. Say that they've just joined a social volleyball league, and now every Tuesday and Thursday night after 5 p.m.
How about women's basketball?
Women's basketball. They joined a women's basketball
I just pulled
league.
that out of the air.
Oh, yeah? Just thin air. I might know a thing or two about that.
You might.
For all of our listeners, I did play college basketball, and I'm a huge New York Liberty fan, and have had season tickets since before the stadium was filled in 2021. So we'll throw that out there.
There you go.
But you make a really great point about the efficiency of scheduling. And when you're talking about inventory and making sure that your inventory costs are aligning with the price point that you're putting out there, the same is true on the back end as you're trying to optimize your labor cost as well. So what we're seeing a lot now is that folks have a lot of contingent labor that they're working with. So they're having to bring in third parties or contract labor to fill up the shifts because there's not enough folks that want to work on a very regular or a scheduled basis, a repeatable scheduled basis. And so you're having to sort of offset that regular workforce with contingent labor. We're seeing this with one of our largest food service management clients today. The analytics that our workforce management was able to provide them was they actually saw that they have an employee who's on their regularly scheduled workforce, but their system today did not schedule their existing employee because they would be approaching overtime. This is one of those hard and fast rules that they had set. So they went to contingent labor to avoid paying overtime to that employee. Again, that's one of the it's one of the rules that they had configured in their system. What our analytics showed them was that they actually ended up paying more for that contingent labor based on the negotiated rate for that contingent labor than they would have paid for that employee to work one shift of overtime that week. And so we helped them to correct that rule in their system to say, let's look at the rate that we're paying first, and let's make sure that we're doing what works best for the business.
Would that work in a converse side for the employee, where the employee, hey, I'm not getting enough hours, and where the system would actually tell them it's because of the schedule you put in there, but if you just adjusted your schedule this way, you would get more hours?
There are alerts that can be sent out both to the employee and to management. And so we have analytics that will go even so far to say your employee is often picking up a shift on this team. Do you think your employee is a better fit for that team than the team that they're currently on? Let's take a deeper dive into that.
Right. And those things are those types of things, rules or reporting that a person or analytics that a person has to program, or is it just sort of come with it, that it will do that and provide those kinds of insights and then ask you, do you want to do this or that or tweak?
It's such a great question, and the answer is actually both. So the system is pre-configured for certain analytics. We have a full analytics dashboard, and so it'll show you certain insights that come out of the box with the software. These are our most common dashboards that folks want to see, and they can be applied to your business. But then there's also what we like to call that last mile analytics. And so
Right.
those are taking your own business insights that you're looking to analyze on a regular basis, whether it's a report sent to management or the executive level. And so those are things that we can help you to configure throughout the implementation process. But it's also it's an ongoing applied data analysis process, right? It's not
Is it
something that
also
you're going to set
something that
once
when
and
you're when
forget.
you're well, when you're talking about the onboarding or you're bringing it on, can you go ahead and take historical data, put in, and even before you get started, suggest and have insights as to how you might want to manage or some changes you might want to make? Because a great time to make changes in process is when you're, upgrading or putting in a new system.
Yeah. And that's part of our implementation methodology, right? We take a look back, we take a look forward, we take a look at exactly where you are today. And so you can bring historical information into the system for sure. That's another one of our favorite compliance things. How long do you need to hang on to some of that employee data? How much do you want to bring into a new system? But we could also take that look back outside of the system as we help to deliver insights that will help you with your new system in the
Right.
future.
Well, you've covered, an awful lot of points, and there's a whole bunch, that fall into this. And you actually have me thinking, about what if this, what if that, right? But it's
Yeah.
really about the analytics behind it and being able to look at what's there. So if you're looking at the top trends today, that are out there, just to recap it, because you've covered some of them. But as we're looking
Sure.
at this in workforce management, labor management, as we're moving forward, what are those top trends that you're seeing? And by the way, it doesn't have to be hospitality, retail, food service, healthcare. Where do you see, is there some commonality?
So, what I've seen in my time in this role, from amusement parks to massive hotel operations with many different properties, through retail and to cruise ships, is that the three trends tend to be the same. Everyone is looking to retain high quality labor. I think that it's been a bit of a challenge to staff back up since 2022. And so everyone is still sort of reeling from the fallout there, but they're starting to figure out how to meet the new generation of labor where they need to be. And that goes back to that gig style labor. The second is the need to stay on budget. And so that's optimizing your labor costs, and by scheduling in a way that
Right.
is very tight, and that is repeatable, that's going to help you to stick to that payroll budget that you have and optimize your labor costs. And then the other key is that folks are looking for a third party to help them to maintain all of their compliance with local laws, state laws, federal laws, and any regulations that they're
You
having
may
to
be a
adhere
third
to.
party, but I look at it as a partnership.
A
Because in
partnership.
reality, you are, that department that helps them to manage better, that gives them information. And again, where we started this conversation was the depth of the products, and the applications and the knowledge and experience that Infor has, which is, all of those different individual silos, best of breeds, if you want to look at it that way. And then, but they all work together, and
Yep.
then putting a base behind it, but then also multi-industry, global. I think that's really what you're, bringing together, and probably something a lot of people didn't know about, Infor itself, besides not knowing about some of your background, which we've shared as well. But I think that's really the beauty of it, that you have those parts and pieces. But if somebody wants it all together, you're going to do that.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool altogether, but like we said, it can also be delivered as standalone. One of our largest clients has everything from amusement parks to media and entertainment businesses, and our software is the most sophisticated rules engine, or applied learnings that you can find in the market. And so they use us for one piece of it, but you can definitely, I love your feedback on this. Actually, I'm seeing this pendulum swing, and I've seen it swing twice in the 15 years that I've been in hospitality. But when I started in hospitality, it seemed like people were very comfortable going with one company for all of their technology. They liked that everything was integrated and that it was managed by their partners. We swung away from that, where people wanted to go find best of breed. And so they'd piecemeal things that they found in the market, and they'd control all of the integration. It seems like the pendulum is swinging back towards, we want our partners to manage the integration, because that's how they're designing it. They have the foresight. They're embedding new tools like artificial intelligence and AI. What are you seeing? You've got these TechByte
Well,
podcasts all the
I
time.
think that it's an interesting question, and the answer is one of those yes things, because what we didn't predict years ago is that our industry and the operators in it were going to find themselves in multi-environments, multi-concepts, even restaurateurs. I mean, hotels were used to having different brands, that you could have a management company. We didn't really have those management companies, in the restaurant industry, but now we do today. And especially with the private equity firms that are, pulling together different brands and concepts, or we have people that decide to do dark kitchen or virtual brands on top of what they have, or they go into vending, or they go somewhere else. So the answer is in that they need to have best of breed, and they choose best of breed when they need it, especially when there's a specific function. The word mandate really has dropped out of the vocabulary for franchisors and franchisees today, because you get franchisees now willing to accept systems because they know it's going to help them operate together, and they need to be able to communicate with the guests, like loyalty and things like that. So I don't know that there's a single answer there. I think that the positioning of being able to sell best of breed, clearly best of breed, so they stack up one-on-one, or having an all-in-one solution. But the keyword that you used there was integration, because integration is a specialty in itself that's not necessarily tied to the applications, the functions and features. And it also changes based on geography, industry segment. So I don't know that answered that. That's a huge discussion on its own. But the very fact that you have those, solutions, and you can look at it either way, and nobody today just rolls out everything all at once. You do deal with the legacy. So, you can deal with it any way you look at it.
True.
So that's going to be the way to answer the next RFP. Is going to be to take a look at it, that way. So, well, listen, it's been a pleasure. I'm with Kasey Gieschen, who is a global account executive focusing on hospitality and workforce management today for Infor. And, it's been a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And I suspect, just on the way we're ending this conversation, that there are many subjects that we can talk about going forward. But there's also many subjects of interest that came out of this special TechByte Spotlight that are, members and those who are able to view and listen to this are going to come away with as well, that they're going to want to have with you directly, and also with Infor. So I really appreciate your coming on today.
Thanks so much, Rob. And I think that in an effort to share some final thoughts from Infor as well, I think that from our whole technology strategy is designed to help our customers spend less time within the application. So we want to make things easier, we want to make things automated, and we want to give our client partners the ability to focus on what really matters to their business and the things that they should be doing. So spending less time in the software, managing a software, but spending more time with their employees, spending more time serving their guests, and spending more time making their brand what makes it so valuable.
And what also makes Infor more valuable in doing that is a background like you have, that comes from working in the industry on both sides, but from multi-suppliers, multi-industry, multi-segment. And it actually is the people behind Infor as much as it is the applications that make the difference in a partnership with a customer.
It certainly is.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. And I hope that this conversation continues both on camera and off camera, and that this has sparked interesting conversation amongst current customers and future customers, and people that just want to engage with both you and Infor in looking at different applications across the hospitality industry. So thank you for joining us on this TechByte Spotlight. This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of TechBytes, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.